Welcome back this morning. Mississippi has about 300 cities and towns throughout its 82 counties. Some of these communities have their own water problems, although the issues may not be as extreme as what's happening in Jackson right now. But this morning we have a live interview with Shari Veazey. I believe I said that correctly. She is the executive producer of the Mississippi Municipal League. Good morning, Ms. Veazey. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So what kinds of water infrastructure problems would you say other Mississippi cities are facing, and how widespread are these issues?
The majority of our 300 cities are dealing with an aging infrastructure, just like Jackson has, but maybe not to that degree. But many of the water pipes and water lines that are in these cities were laid 50 or 100 years ago. And so they need some upgrades, and it's very expensive to do that. As you probably know, water systems are considered enterprise funds. So a citizen pays a rate, and those rates are go into this fund, and it's supposed to support the maintenance and operation of the water system. But the reality is it's gotten to be so expensive that rates no longer do that. In many cases, cities would have to raise their rates extremely high to be able to pay for water and sewer infrastructure needs. So it is a problem all over our state. And Jackson is just our biggest city, and their problems are a lot bigger, obviously.
Gotcha, okay. Well, there's a lot of national attention coming to this story right now to Jackson. Do you hope that there are any long-term end results from this, and what do you hope those would be?
I do. I think just the fact that our state leaders are working with Jackson now, that there's some federal funding coming, and I hope this will give Jackson city leaders the time to formulate a plan of how they're going to address their issues going forward. And so I hate it came to this, but I think it's a positive thing that our city and state leaders are working together to get resources to address this critical issue. And then going forward, I hope that they'll be able to make some plans for how they're going to address long-term issues ultimately for the citizens and for the businesses here in Jackson.
Okay. Now, I believe you've touched on this already, but can you tell us more, maybe some specific examples of what the MML would like to see, some changes they would like to see made to help cities better address their infrastructure needs?
Fortunately for us, with all of the federal money, the ARPA money, which all of you have heard so much about, there is now a matching grant program. The portal just opened today. The state took $450 million of their federal ARPA funds and established a matching grant program. So we're very pleased that cities as large as Jackson and as small as some of your smaller cities in your area will be able to ask for either a 2-to-1 or 1-to-1 match to address their needs. So that's a very good first step. However, going forward, there's going to be needs for additional funds. Paving streets is a huge issue for cities, and asphalt alone has increased by 52% since the pandemic started. So it's just not water and sewer, but the ARPA matching grant program, we feel like, is a very positive step in the right direction for all of our cities to be able to leverage their federal money to make these improvements.
Okay. So now, as far as the MML themselves, a question to end on here, can you tell us a bit more about how they help cities with their infrastructure needs? Anything we haven't said, perhaps?
Well, obviously, I've talked a lot about legislation, but we advocate for them every year at the Capitol during the legislative session. We're always looking for innovative ways for them to be able to have, not just outside of ARPA funds, but for them to be able to have more funding at the local level. So we have a legislative agenda every year that we work toward. We also spend a lot of our time doing training and education for our members, because just like with the ARPA program that's already there, when there are federal and state resources available, we want to make sure that they're trained on how to best take advantage of those. So we spend a lot of our time at conferences with training, utilizing federal and state resources to help them learn how they can take advantage of what's out there.
All right, Ms. Veazey, well, I believe that's all the time we have this morning. Is there anything else we haven't said that you'd like to say real quick? A few seconds.
Well, it's just that water and sewer is one of the most important services provided to citizens, and we're working very hard to help our cities develop and take advantage of resources. But it's a long-term process, just like in Jackson. So, but we're hoping that this attention does help all of our cities.
All right, Ms. Veazey, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.